Can I say adios at the end of the pod?
I'd love it if you did.
I probably will.
Okay.
Watch this. No way!
Hello and welcome back to the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast. I am Tom Mills and today I'm joined by Sam Williams.
Greetings, Thomas.
And we've got two guests on today. One of them might be a familiar voice. We've got a three-peat on the podcast in the form of Sam Cooper. Sam, as some of you may know, was traveling around the UK with the ambition of playing every single links course that he could get his paws on. And the last time we spoke to him, he'd got a little way through it. Now he's a lot more of the way through it. So Sam Cooper, welcome back.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. And we've got Simon Holt. And Simon Holt is in the frame of another guest that we've had, a David Davis. Simon is one of these rare breeds that managed to have played all of the top 100 golf courses in the world, which is quite a feat. I think there's only about 40-something of you in existence. A rare breed. If you catch one, find one, mate with them, you might get some good offspring. Simon, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I didn't realize it was mating season, and
it's always mating season in the jar.
And does Sam get some sort of trophy to keep now he's been on 3 times?
I don't know. We've never had a guest 3 times.
I don't think he'll be invited on again. Yeah, this is his last chance saloon now, I think, Simon.
I want a belt. I want to take the belt home.
That's the better way of looking at it. Yes, very good, very good. Good press trick reference. Simon, it'd be really good to get you to give a bit of introduction to yourself. And kind of your background in the game as someone who our listeners might not know too much about.
Sure. Where to start, really? I grew up, I sort of moved around a lot when I was very young, and then my parents settled in North Berwick when I was 14, so I grew up with the awful burden of learning golf at North Berwick Westlinks, which I didn't realize was as much of a privilege until I went away and then longed to go back home all the time. But yeah, so I started playing golf in North Berwick, which I absolutely loved. The bullet points, I suppose, are then went to University of St Andrews, another hardship, played 130 odd rounds on the old course. Yes, I'll make people sick now. I think I caddied maybe 600 rounds in total in the summers that I was there. I was actually there at the same time as Ollie Horowitz, who wrote the book American Caddy in St Andrews. Little plug for Ollie there, but you should have him on the pod at some point. Good lad. And then and then just started. I went into a really boring job for a bank that I won't name, but it might be RBS, and left there after 3 years, like the prophets of doom, just before the financial crisis, and decided I wanted to work in golf. So I drove in the gates at the Renaissance Club, and I'd had a shave and I'd stole my parents' car and drove in and basically spoke to the owner and worked there for 4 wonderful years. And that was my first job in golf, which I loved. And then after that, I've sort of dabbled with golf clothing, and then fell in with one of my best mates, Jim Stewart from Connoisseur Golf. And I've worked with him for the last 5 years, and, you know, kind of like a sales agent pushing my sort of little black book his way. But then in terms of golf travel, which you kindly alluded to earlier, I just had this crazy itch a few years ago to run around the world and play the World Top 100. And I will be lying if I didn't say it was a little ego driven by someone telling me no one from the UK had done that before. So the whole time I was sweating, thinking, is someone going to beat me here? And because you don't know until someone sort of puts their flag in the ground. Someone could have been on 99 when I was on 70, who knew? But yeah, I kind of, there's this Illuminati called the Global Golf Centurions Club, and they kind of tap you on the shoulder because somehow they know you've finished, and they kind of interview you. So that was an interesting process, and they're great lads, but it's very much, we all, me included, pat each other on the back a lot. And I'm obviously joking. It's great fun. I was lucky to see all those amazing places, travel the world, meet incredible people, and without getting too cheesy about it, what I did realize traveling all over the world is still how lucky we are here in the UK and Ireland, close to home here, with the quality of our golf courses. And to what Sam is doing right now, he's experiencing, you know, equal to the quality of the golf that I did on about 1/100th of the budget, by the sounds of it, in the back of his van. But
It's a good segue. Yeah, let's get a health check on that then, Sam. So playing every links around UK and Ireland from the van. I think last time you joined the pod, you'd played, felt like about maybe half a dozen. I think that's probably been a bit harsh. You played with about 30 or 40, but if you follow your Instagram and the bench is on the way, like the volume of courses you are playing is genuinely frightening. What's the progress looking like at the moment?
Pretty good. So I've slowed down a little bit now that we're getting into the winter. But I think last year I got to almost 75 courses, which I didn't think was terrible going between what was mid-September and Christmas time. And then literally went back home for Christmas, Nicola locked down the border, and then we were back into lockdowns, weren't we? So I think it was the first sort of pretty much the first half of the year where I just things and life and COVID and lockdowns and everything else. We didn't start again this year until about June. And in fact, I remember England were playing in the semi-finals of the Euros when I was off going to play some of the first courses. So since then, done about another 100. So I'm at 175 now. And hopefully over the winter, I'll be able to get to 200 or so. So I'm getting there now. But the list, which started as 192, is now up to 225. So that's the downside. Every time I go to an area and I say, what courses am I missing here? I get a few responses that I add to the list, and I wonder if I'll ever finish it.
Well, I think our listeners are probably kind of sitting here and thinking, well, this is a bit of a random assortment. So you've got Sam Cooper, links from the road. We've got Simon Holt here. What are we doing here on a pod together? And I guess we've got a really exciting sort of couple of announcements, one big announcement, however we look at it. Simon, do you want to lead the charge on this one? I think this is really exciting stuff. For golf and golf travel.
Sure. Well, thank you very much. And I suppose this is a world exclusive to a certain extent, but drum roll. So myself and a good friend of the jar, David Davis, and a group of investors put together a group, and we have come in and put some significant investment into top100golfcourses.com, which seems to be, from everyone we've spoken to, everyone's dirty little secret for planning golf trips, reading up about golf courses, and etc. So, this is an incredible site, and, that's been running since the early 2000s. I think everyone knows it. And even if you don't know the name, you're kind of aware of it in your subconscious from the golf balls and the red flags, and, it kind of does what it does. But this got this incredible foundation. And I suppose the next exciting bit of news is Sam and I met in a not to be named pizza restaurant in Glasgow about 2 months ago, having known each other and flirted over the phone for a while. We met over pizza, and his lovely wife Harriet was there as his better half, and Harriet and Sam are both going to come in and lead top 100 golf courses for us, which I'm super excited about and very, very pleased with.
That is extremely exciting. That's incredible.
I've got a job, Sam. I've got a job for the first time in my life as a self-employed guy. I've got a job, which is quite surreal.
Job from the van.
Job from the van.
It's proof. It's proof that if you spend a year living out of a van, you can you're eventually going to land on your own 2 feet. Eventually, aren't you? And get some employment. But jokes aside, like, that is really exciting. I mean, I've known that website for as long as I can remember traveling about playing golf. So kind of back to my student days, when you'd go and play somewhere around the corner from Loughborough, or, wherever it would be, you'd always type in the course. The website's so well optimized because it just guarantees to come straight up on Google. So you just get really familiar with it, don't you? And it becomes, like you say, it's a bit of a dirty little secret almost. You sort of spend loads of time looking at courses. You get really obsessed with rankings. I don't actually understand why rankings is something that, as a golfer, we totally obsess over. Most golfers I know, we do. You do, don't you? It's so bizarre, but you do obsess over rankings. The number of people that want to play the top 100 in England or the UK and Ireland or America or the world, it's never ending. And it's probably one of the great things about sport. But yeah, I mean, that website, that's really the kind of gateway to a lot of it, I think. So I think that's exciting. In terms of what can we expect to see then? I mean, what do you hope to do with it? Can you give us a bit of a sort of sneak peek?
Sure. Well, if I talk about it a bit more conceptually, and I think Sam's absolutely the person to talk about and get his passion across about the actual site itself. So as a business, we've come in and appointed Sam to lead that section. So he'll talk to the rankings piece in a second. But also, it seems to be, like I joked earlier, this dirty little secret for trip planning and the go-to site on the web for finding out about courses. And what I love about the site is that even though the name is Top 100 Golf Courses, it actually opens this little sort of rabbit hole down into 7,500 golf courses. So it doesn't just shine the light on the very best. You can go everywhere all over the world. And with my background of working in travel and meeting people all over the world whilst I've been traveling, I'd now love to be able to open the doors to all these wonderful places to the wider public at every different price level, really. So if people see us as the go-to site to find out about golf courses, I would hope it's not too much of a leap to make to say, these guys know exactly what they're doing about travel, which I have a strong background in. And for us to curate trips for people that want to go anywhere in the world, anywhere we can put together within reason. Don't call me and ask me to get you on Augusta, please. As the phone rings
DMs
off,
are lighting up as we speak.
the phone rings off the hook. Had that one before. No, and didn't supply. But yeah, Great Britain and Ireland. And then just shining the light, I was talking to someone the other day about Northwest Ireland and how forgotten that is. And especially in a year like next year when anyone that's tried to get one of the marquee names on a golf trip, like a Royal County Down, a Portrush, a Muirfields, Turnberry, some of the Northwest clubs, Hoylake and things that Sam's very familiar with, you're just barking up the wrong tree. And to sort of encourage people that there are other golf courses out there, use this as the opportunity to go and visit the Khans of this world and Trevose and places and go out there, or go to where David Davis is from that we were just talking about. Take the opportunity to go to the Netherlands and play Royal Hague and Japan, which I probably pronounced wrong. But those courses are absolutely phenomenal, and you can have a bloody good time whilst you're at it. But anyway, that's my kind of view on what's going to happen. It'll be not reinventing the wheel, just building on this incredible foundation, which Sam's going to lead. And then there will absolutely be a travel segment as well. And a lot of that won't be us running the trips. They'll be referred to some of the trusted suppliers that I've met around the world in every different location. So people can come to us knowing that they have people on the ground that are going to do an incredible job. But that's the kind of salesy pitch on the sales side of it, if you like. But Sam is absolutely the person to talk about the rankings.
Well, I think for me, the top100golfcourses.com is the list that I always refer back to. I think the reason is because it's so easy to get hold of. It's, if I want to try and find out what's best in Worcester or North Scotland or wherever I'm looking, it's quite easy to find what you want. In terms of how that was created before, how did like you said before, it's not 100 golf courses, it's 7,500. How were those courses compiled? How were they ranked? Is that going to stay the same, or are we going to look to try and develop that moving forward?
I think we're just going to try and build on what's worked so well for so long, really. And the lists, that is the world list, the GB&I list, even actually down to the counties and the states, they're all compiled by our panelists, and we try and find the best panelists, and we want to have as many really well-informed guys and girls out there who are playing these courses, because we can't be everywhere, and we've got to rely on our network of wonderful panelists around the world. And I would say that going forward, we're going to have slightly more transparency in our criteria, which we've come to and we've discussed. But that's definitely a part that will change slightly, and basically just grow out our lists of panelists. So have as many really, really switched on people who love architecture, who love playing different golf courses, who ultimately compiled these lists, and that's the only way that I think that we can have something that is actually valuable for the people in the specific areas. But also, what makes Top 100 probably unique is it's not just the world list or the GBNI list, it's ranking the courses in Ayrshire or Surrey or wherever else. And that's all around the world, Korea, Australia, you know, all of these places. We have people around the world who contribute to the website and help us to produce the rankings that we produce. And I would say that going forward, the great platform that we have, we just want to build on it. We want to get more of these wonderful people. We want to form a slightly stronger identity of what we promote as. I would say that if you look at the Golf Magazine list, and you know, you've got people like Fran Morrisett and Tom Doak and Gil Hansen, all of these guys and some others contributing to that list. And I know what that list is. I know the kind of courses that they're going to favor, because I know what those guys are like. They're not backwards in coming forwards about it. And equally, there are other publications where if you like a different style of golf course, then you're absolutely entitled to. And there are lists out there that reflect that. And I would say that in the short term, we need to develop our own criteria, our own panelists, and enhance what we have already, and develop a slightly stronger identity of what we believe. And that's something that we'll be announcing more of over the coming weeks. But going forward, I mean, we are really the only betting, and that gives us so many opportunities. And you know, I think off air, I talked to you guys about the prospect of coming up with tailored lists. So, you know, it's not everyone's going to like Strategic Design and Golden Age Wonders and all these kind of places that, if you're an architectural snob, they're the things that you might value. But if you just want something that's manicured to an inch of its life and full of water fountains and Fazio and Nicholas, then
that's a leading comment for someone who doesn't put much
Sounds
stock
like
in
you
it.
love
But you're
it.
right. There are some people who want to play more, you know, modern designs. They want to play championship courses. That's absolutely fine. And then it should filter out the Prestwicks of the world, and it should filter out, you know, clubs like maybe like a New Zealand or something. It should put them towards something different. And there's nothing wrong with that, right?
I would absolutely love, if we could get to a point with the website where, you know, you, Sam Williams, with your taste in golf, could register your account and answer a few questions, do a few either-ors. Would you rather play here or there? And it comes up with a list. This is incredibly meaningful to you, because another part of the rankings is, well, it's lovely to look at a top 100 list, and unless your name is Simon Holt or you know, a couple of dozen other people, then realistically playing Pine Valley, Augusta National, Elliston, some of these places, it's not on the cards. So it's very difficult to do that. And there is a lot of value in having a list that is viable. And there's so many opportunities to have tailored lists that I would love to do more of.
So just within the rankings themselves then. So you use, I mean, usually these projects, I guess, come about because it feels like there's an opportunity to do something better than it's been done today. So, you know, kind of looking at how you assess courses, and, you know, you're two people with two totally different views of the world, right? Like what do you think kind of needs to change in terms of how courses are ranked? Or is it actually a case of maybe giving more courses a platform to be assessed in some respects, which maybe things like Golf Magazine can't do?
I think, like, I'll jump in there, Sam, but I think the most important thing to me personally, and Sam will be the one leading the rankings with David Davis and, you know, the great team of panelists that are already there. And Sam will maybe talk a little later about the restructure of that. But it's about transparency, and people have to put their name to something. And that's another great thing about the site, is kind of all the reviews, but talking specifically about how ratings are done. And, you know, I'm lucky enough to be involved in something. Someone asked me to be involved in one of the other publications, and I love doing that. But, you know, is to have the freedom that this person is well traveled in the particular region, you know, let them just have at it and trust them to deliver within some sort of guidelines. And Sam says like the way to break it up, if you can do like fun courses maybe, and it shines a light on courses that are never going to be in a top 100, or maybe even like a GB&I top 100. So when Queen Nicola let us out of Edinburgh earlier this year, I jumped in the car first thing, drove up to Aberdeen, and we weren't allowed to drink outside, so I was hunkered under an umbrella in the car park of a Green King pub, having like the first pint that we were allowed to have. Anyway, sorry, I digress. So played Royal Aberdeen, and which is wonderful. Played there a few times and really enjoy it. But then the next day we drove up and played Fraserburgh, which I'd always wanted to play. And then the next day I played Cullen because of the No Lane Up boys. They sort of shone a light on
ads. No free ads.
And the Cookie Jar Boys. Sorry, Simon. And the Cookie Jar Boys. Sorry, just steady on there. Just we'll give you a chance to walk that comment back. But it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, sorry, cut that bit out.
No,
Other pods are available.
I'm just joking. I'm pulling your chain. But how different are those courses? Like, they are so different, aren't they? When they're all great in their own way.
So much fun. Then the day after that, we went to play Kovesey. I mean, Kovesey, are you kidding me?
That looks cool.
You drive down this little pass, and it's very much kind of in vogue at the moment. It's kind of woke. I can't remember which publication it was in recently, but we go through these cycles where something's kind of cool in golf, and Kovesey seemed to have this little window. So I was like, oh, I'll go and see there. We drive in, and there's a Thai flag flying, as in Thailand. And we go in, and it's £10 for the round. It's 9 holes, jolly golf. Some people would definitely turn their nose up at. It's never going to be on a World Top 100 list. Probably won't be in a Top 100 Scotland list, but I tell you what, it should be on a Top 10 fun list. And then we finish the course, and then the connect with the Thai flag emerges that I think like the owner or the owner's wife really loves Thailand. So they're serving Thai food out of a caravan.
I love that place.
Yeah, it's so cool.
I mean, that's so cool. It's so much fun. How can you not have a smile on your face when you leave a place like that?
I don't think it is, though, just woke golf, though. I think like it's easy to sit there and be like, oh, here they are with a single strap bags rocking up. The more rugged, the better. But, the problem is, I think there's just so much stuff out there when you look at golf content now that, when you find places like Kovesey where not everyone's kind of had their paws on it, it all hasn't become homogenized with a club sandwich and a locker room and a load of parking spaces reserved for general committee members. It's actually quite refreshing to go to a place like that, and I think that's awesome. Like we went out to Northern Ireland a few weeks back, and the band course, the second course there at Castle Rock, just blew us away for exactly the same reason that you said there. You walk through this like random sort of series of kind of mobile or static homes, like, kind of one step up from caravans. Then you arrive at the first tee and you've just got 9-hole playground in front of you. And I think, sometimes those are the more rewarding parts of a golf trip because it's just hit you out of nowhere, rather than kind of going there and thinking, yeah, I'm going to Royal Aberdeen. I know Royal Aberdeen's going to be fantastic, but it's like, how do you deliver beyond that? I'm already excited.
I think there's a really good segue kind of back to the rankings and that you're talking about, Sam. So I couldn't agree more. I love Kovesey. I love these places. Some of the absolute highlights of the tours I've been on are the little places that I didn't expect anything from and then blew me away. And one of the great things about links golf is you normally get at least a few genuinely world-class holes in the sand dunes, playing over sink, playing over the beach, whatever it might be. And they're just such brilliant fun. And the fun elements, yeah, there are things that we can do with it. But I think mainstream fun, it's amazing how, having studied all of these lists from Golf Digest and Golf Magazine and British publications and all around the world, how styles and ideas have changed over recent years, over the last couple of decades since they've started doing them. If you look at the very first World Top 100 list that Golf Digest came out with and contrasted that with the list that General Wisdom would put in the World Top 100 of any publication nowadays, some of them they're just so different. And I put it down to styles and preferences and all these things changing. And there was a time when resistance to scoring and difficulty and having a penal golf course was the gold standard. And I think people have tired of that. And I genuinely believe that we're in this sort of whatever you want to call it, second golden age of strategic golf. And the courses now that are being promoted on these lists are very enjoyable to play for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, if I can just be a bit of a hometown boy here and talk about like North Berwick. A lot of people will have read about North Berwick, and it's frustrated me no end the past few years, and a little bit to do with lockdown as well, that all the rough started creeping in and swallowing up the bunkers. And I used to joke, like, but not really joking, we didn't have fairway bunkers anymore. We had first cuts bunkers because all the bunkers were just marooned. And by making the course narrower, it actually made it wider, if that makes sense, because the bunkers weren't gathering. So a new greenkeeper came in, and it was because they were short-staffed as well during COVID and the restrictions and whatever. But, Darren McLaughlin has come in, and he's doing a wonderful job. He was at Montrose before, but he really gets links golf, and he was at Machrihanish historically as well. And all it takes is to widen out the fairways and to make it fun. And I've kind of like waffled and gone on a tangent there, but the point is that fun golf doesn't need to be hard golf, and it doesn't need to be narrow, inverted commas, defined fairways because someone's read it in a textbook or they just think that's the right thing to say. If courses have a bit more width, especially links courses, then it actually brings more strategy in because the ball runs into more interesting places, open up angles and things like that. And we've definitely gone away from, and you see this across all the rankings, that really tough champion test that used to be revered has definitely gone out of fashion. And fun, 100%. Hard, firm, fast conditions are certainly in vogue.
And I listened to the podcast of No Laying Up, and given the fact you've already plugged them once on this podcast, I'll match you. But I did listen to you talking about your experiences. And it's a really good episode, and it is really interesting you talk about it. But the fact that you're a good golfer, but you get a lot of enjoyment playing courses where there is a lot of width out there. It is forgiving because there's no getting away from it. No one enjoys walking golf holes. There's never a bigger disappointment on a par 5 on a course you never played, where you end up walking 450 yards with the ball in your pocket. It's just no enjoyment. And I think widening them out is definitely, like you say, it feels like it's sort of much more in fashion. Mm-hmm. I am a little bit curious though, like, is it possible that we're all trapped in our own little echo chamber about width and angles and tree removal and firm and fast? And actually, like, if that's the way it's come round in the last 10 or 15 years, isn't it just as likely that it could go maybe in the next 10 or 15 years time?
Sam, I really don't think we are. I think, as we're all sat in Britain, Simon, perhaps you could enlighten us a little bit on this, but I think that our British courses have slightly lagged behind some of the great restorations that some of us have seen in places like Melbourne, Sandbelt, and the States. And it's almost kind of been like, well, wow, look at this, look what they've done at such and such a place here. And for me, what is interesting about the things that we've talked about there with the width is, if you make a golf course narrow, you make it maybe 10%, 15% harder for the very best players, but you make it 200% harder for your average Joe golfers, like me. And that is the reason why I think it's falling out of fashion. We as golf went through this thing of trying it out. And yes, obviously, if a pro hits a bad drive that's offline and it goes in the thick rough, then their score on that hole is going to be a bit higher than if they'd stuck in the fairway. But if you've got the best 150 golfers in the world, take the case of the Open Championship, and one of those guys is going to play pretty well that week. So I rewatched Tiger's round from 2006 recently. Hoylake boy. It was brilliant watching him go round with a 2-iron. Well, Hoylake probably is one of many, many golf courses, and it's not just Hoylake. It's a lot of places are narrower than they were historically. But if Tiger had played those same shots in 2021, his score would have been exactly the same because he didn't miss any of those fairways. But members do. And I think it's a great leveler to have the width and the firmness that Simon talks about, because the best players will run out of position. and the weaker players will find the fairway more often. So it sort of levels the divide between the great golfers and the average golfers, and makes the game more interesting for both, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And I think, I was talking I was talking with Rand Morissette from the Golf Magazine panel recently, and he was saying, I said I was joking with him, I was winding him up, saying it's taken 150 years for the US, golf industry to cotton onto we had it right all along in the UK and firm and fast. And these courses like Oakland Hills, and forgive me, it is a bit name droppy, but I went to play Oakland Hills when I was on this crazy sort of trek around the world. And I didn't really think much of it. And in Doak's Confidential Guide, I think he rates it as an 8 or a 9. I was like, wow, what am I missing here? And it's because it had just been swamped by rough. And, the restoration that they've done, they've made the greens 30% larger. Now, they haven't really. Wow. They've just gone out to the original pad and they've widened out the fairways and just made it more fun to play. And all of a sudden, it's jumped up in the rankings and it's firm and fast. Somerset Hills a few years ago, same thing happened there. Same things happened at Baltusrol. I think Baltusrol dropped off their list completely and is now back on. And they're doing that. And I just hope in the UK, we're not sort of 20 years behind the cycle that all of a sudden we're going to be on we have to make it hard and narrow. It's ridiculous that they're going to shoot 20 under plus around the old course. So this is a travesty. They can't do that. Guess what? If there's no winds, someone will shoot 20 under lower around the old course next year. It is what it is. And that's okay.
They're really good at golf. And one of them's going to play well.
Yeah, they are very, very good at golf. Just bringing it back to coming out of this, because we're in danger of going down a rabbit hole of golf course architecture here, and it'd be interesting to talk about, why we're here, being the top 100. Cooper, I'm going to give you an interview question. How has your trip so far prepared you for the role of editorial director of the top 100? I'm sure Simon asked you this in the interview anyway, didn't he?
Oh, wow. I very fortunate that you went on my interviewing panel, Mills. I would say that the very best way that it's prepared me is, number one, seeing such a breadth of golf courses, because you can go around and just go to the top places, and that's brilliant. And we all like going to Muirfield and Royal St George's and wherever else. They're wonderful days out. But like Simon just said at Coatesy, some of these places are brilliant, and you've got to have the relative concept of what makes a great golf course. Because if you only see one type or one class of course, then you're probably not understanding how it fits into the grander concept of courses as a whole. And as Simon said, there were 7,500 courses on the website. So that's part of it. Another part of it is the people that I've met, because whilst we can write a criteria that is, let's say we write the best criteria in the world ever. Well, unless we've got wonderful people who understand this, who understand architecture, who understand golf courses, unless we have great panelists all over the place, then it's pointless. It's never going to be as effective as it could be. So the number of people that I've met who get it, who love golf, who love links golf, and who love the great golf that we have in our country is phenomenal. And that's definitely an asset.
And when, obviously beyond the panelists and things, when you look to try and make the best list that you can make as a collective of people, what do you think are the defining criteria that, will allow you to decide what course is better than another? In specifically, how do you compare a Heathland to a Linksland to a Parkland course? So how is that process done?
Well, that's what I was sort of referring to before when I said you've got to have an identity as a list, and you've got to be transparent. So we've been going through that exercise, and we'll publish our criteria that we've written in the next few weeks, I imagine. And we've gone through this and rewritten it and spent hours and hours and hours thinking of that very point and discussing it with some of the true leading people in the industry, your Shacklefords and your Doaks and all of these other guys who are not shrinking violets in offering their opinion on what makes a great golf course. And that's brilliant, because that's what we need. We want to have something that is transparent and robust, because how do you compare not just Linksland to Heathland, but how do you compare resort golf to Scottish links golf? How do you compare courses that are built by blowing up mountains in Japan with dynamite? How do you compare that to a course that was designed in 1920 by Harry Colt? I mean, golf is so varied, and it takes so many different shapes and forms around the entire planet that it's so very difficult to come up with something that's unifying. And that is one of the reasons, to go back to the point I was saying before, I'm so excited that we'll be able to tailor our responses in due course and come up with different horses, different courses for different horses. That's something where we'd like to get to, because it's, I would say, incredibly challenging to have everything completely line up and for no one to think that we've got it wrong, because that's the name of the game.
Yeah. And do you think, if you miss out, if you're a club that is 101st in the world, that is a big issue, compared to being 99th. Do you anticipate any pressure? One, two, do you kind of feel a burden of responsibility that, it really does have to be as right as you can get it? Because, being 101 to a club is a huge loss in value, because all of a sudden, you're not on that list, and you're not going to get the visitor income perhaps that you feel like you deserve. Do you feel that pressure, or do you get that pressure at all, Simon?
I think definitely. I've not ever compiled a list myself. I've been involved with giving my opinion, of course, on lists that have been compiled, but not setting the criteria. It certainly has an impact. And it's easy to dismiss lists and say, oh, they're not important. Like, they are just, at the end of the day, a great conversation piece. We've all sat in clubhouses and pubs and argued with our mates over the relative position of courses. If nothing else, it's fun for that. But undoubtedly, it shines a light on particular courses. They see an uptick in revenue, but there's nothing bad with that, because I'll tell you what else happens with that. If people weren't reading lists and say, I can't think of a course right now, say Troon is on the list and has been for years, and 20 years ago people started flying over the Atlantic to play golf in Scotland, and they go and play Royal Troon, and whilst they're here, either a caddy or a barman or a bar lady or whoever says, oh, by the way, you should go and play Western Gales. And all of a sudden Western Gales starts to get some notoriety, and it all spins off like that. So all these things, sort of the rising tide lifts all ships, but let's not joke about it. Like, if courses just fall outside of top 100, it is detrimental, absolutely, because it's not as much of a light. So there is pressure on staff to get it right.
Well, no pressure. And, I think you talk about having an identity, and just like you say, having things that you clearly reward. We ran a piece, I can't remember what it was, right at the start of the year, I want to say, where we compared a couple of the different global and the UK rankings and looked at the different kind of metrics and the things they use in the scoring criteria. And actually, when you have an understanding of that, I think it does help you as a customer, as a traveling golfer, to make more informed decisions. Whichever way, it sounds like 90% weighting on resistance to scoring is unlikely to feature in the criteria. While we're on the topic of travel, like we had Jeff Shackelford on the pod a few weeks ago, and he summarized how he sort of almost kind of like rates a course in his own mind, when he plays there. I think he said, can I remember all the holes? Could I play it over and over and never bore? And could I walk my dog around it? And that was kind of quite a simple way of doing it. I'm pretty curious how you would both, simplify how you would look at great golf courses, and how you would, what's the real hallmark of a great golf course to you? And what do you look for when you go and visit? I mean, Simon, you've had so much experience of visiting some of the best known in the world. What strikes you more than anything? You must look at that slightly differently to maybe the next man, I guess.
Yeah, I think they often repeated line is, if you can remember all the holes, then it's certainly in the conversation as a truly great golf course. A couple of years ago, someone asked me to put together like my eclectic 18, and the challenge was an eclectic 18 holes. You could only have one hole per course, and it had to be the exact hole number. And that is a really hard exercise for people to go through. Maybe do you maybe don't have to do a world one, but do your county or something like that. Do that exercise. It will prove to you how hard it is. But what it also shows you is, so Royal County Down, this is name drop central. It was a world eclectic that I was putting together. I could have used any hole on the front nine at Royal County Down. I kind of did it all on a spreadsheet and I was scribbling, and I kept putting down holes at Royal County Down. I was like, wow, this is a great way to really see what the truly great golf courses are. If it was as simple as add all the parts together. What's really the subjective part of it is it's not quite as simple as that. My little thing that's slightly different to other people's takes, and I do get quite analytical in my own little way when I'm doing, a ballot sheet for the top 100. But if you get excited in the car on a drive somewhere about playing particular holes, that to me is what a truly great golf course is. If you've already played it and you're driving, so let's use a course that we all know, St Andrews, and in the car, I'm thinking about hitting that first tee shot, and I'm excited. I'm excited about playing the Eden hole, the 11th. I'm excited about playing the 14th and trying to hit over Hell Bunker. I'm excited about, with my low ball flight, trying to get over the green sheds at 17. But you get my point. And then there's other courses that are really, really good golf courses, but for whatever reason, that tuning fork doesn't really go off when I'm on the drive to the golf course. That there's not really a hole there that I'm super excited to play. I just know I'm going to have a lovely day. And I think that's the difference in my mind, when I just know subconsciously, wow, this is great. And I can reel those courses off, like, in the UK and Ireland, like Dornoch, Sunningdale, Royal St George's, Deal, all these places where the shots I'm excited to play, like individual shots I'm excited to play on the drive there. So I know that's more of a concept than
No. I think it's a really interesting way of summarizing it. And I think it's, there's that kind of really objective measurement, isn't there, of golf holes and, how many different ways can I play it, and, the layout and the routing of the course. And a lot of those things are quite objective, but there is definitely something in the air. There's like and the wokester in me would say it's just the vibe, it's the vibe you get on the way around, but it's there, it's like, again, I hate dropping names and stuff, but a couple of weeks ago, we lucky played Prestwick and went back for the second time this year. And it's the third time I've been to Prestwick, and I came away and I was just buzzing again in the car. I was like, I don't know what it is, but there's something in the air when you're playing the golf course where it just gives you that level of excitement that maybe if you dragged and exported the holes to a different piece of land and just called it Prestwick 2.0, it probably wouldn't have that feeling for some reason. So how you kind of legislate for that, I think, is quite tricky.
I would say that you've kind of hit on there the most challenging part of writing the criteria for how we evaluate the courses, because we want to promote the good architecture, we want to promote these principles of strategic design, and all of these things that I think most people would agree are the sort of hallmarks of great golf courses, the green complexes, the routing, and all of these things. But then how you account for that sort of ineffable quality of what makes it a great golf club to visit. And, we are top100golfcourses.com. So the experience of the club, the vibe, the clubhouse, the, cleansing in the clubhouse afterwards in the bar, as much as we love those things, they can't feature as part of our ranking criteria because we're talking about the golf courses, and we've got to try and be disciplined when our panelists are out there. If it's chucking it down with rain and you're playing terrible golf, well, you still got to objectively appraise the golf course as best you can, and you can't just promote somewhere that it might be pretty mediocre golf, but it's just in one of the most beautiful settings and the sun is shining and you're with your mates and you're having a great time. Well, as enjoyable and as much as we love those kind of aspects of the game, we can't let them sort of shroud the judgment on the golf course. So it's such a sort of balancing act to make sure that a great routing does make use of good settings, for example, but it doesn't become the defining characteristic of the course.
So are you telling me that there's a little niche for me to do top 100 golf clubs when literally everywhere you can just lunch and that's it?
I think there's a market
so.
for top 100 lunches for sure. But
I think we could do a collaboration.
But maybe you're going to say, actually, do you know what? Because this is the stuff that, I don't know, our listeners don't know, but, there's elements to the make up a great course, things like, green to tee walks, for me, if there's a fast way to destroy an enjoyment of a golf course, it's walks between green and tee for me. Like that can just ruin the flow of what you've got going on, the vibe of the round. There's elements to things that, I think improve a course as well. Just literally, they're not necessarily always the 18 holes, but how it comes together as a package, lots of other things. So I think that kind of point around the intangibles or the vibe, for want of a better term, of the course, I do think that exists, even if I appreciate it's kind of a subjective measure often, it's open to one person's judgment, I guess.
But some people, and I'm sure most of us talking here would probably say, you talk about great routings of golf courses and you think of somewhere like Muirfield and you're like, wow, that just flows and you're walking forwards and the way that golf course is routed is absolutely magnificent. But does that then mean that a golf course that was designed in a different part of the world, it was designed to be played in a completely different way? It was designed for buggies rather than walking. It was designed on a piece of land somewhere like, I haven't been to these places, but maybe Simon has, but somewhere like Wade Hampton or Ellison or somewhere where individually they're wonderful golf holes, but it doesn't fit together in the same way as Muirfield, but it wasn't designed to. So again, coming back to Mills's point, that's one of the really tricky things, to get all of these things to work together and have a criteria that you can apply to places that are just completely different, but we're always designed to be completely different. It is a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that as well. Like that's one of the big things to me is Sam and I, geek out over golf courses and what we think of them all the time, and to fall off a green onto a tee, there's no greater joy. And that flow of a golf course and balance of the routing of a golf course is really important to me. And I don't necessarily have like a formula for that. There shouldn't be a formula for that. It doesn't need to have to be 4 par 3s on a course or something like that. It doesn't need to be a par 72. I don't think of it that way. I just feel of how the round flows. Do I feel like I'm playing different shots? I do put a bit of an onus on par 3s that I feel like I've hit 4 8-irons today, if there does happen to be 4. Nothing that's boring. You're not like a bit of variety and a challenge, and the odd heroic shot here and there that keeps you coming back is what's really exciting to me. But the question I always ask to myself is about the big walks. If there's, say, a golf course where there's a piece of land, there's 4 holes, and then you do a huge walk and there's 3 more holes, then another huge walk and there's more holes. Is that a golf course, or is that just separate little collections of holes that happen to have a walk between them? Like, where do you draw that line? To go to the extreme, there's that golf course in Australia, I think it's like the longest golf course in the world or something like that, and you drive, I don't know, I'm making it up, 1,000 kilometers to play the golf course, and you stop every couple of hundred and there's a tee in the middle of nowhere and a green. Is that a golf course? So where do you draw the line? And to me, falling off a green onto a tee, it is absolute perfection. And let's not, we can get all geeky about this in terms of history. When golf started, and certainly at places like St Andrews, you used to tee up within 2 club lengths of the hole on a handful of sand. And, look where it's evolved to from there. And are we now starting to reel that back in?
I think for me, just to reiterate that point is like, I've got like an unpopular take that Monterey in Portugal it's undoubtedly a gorgeous golf course. But in my mind, it's just 18 gorgeous golf holes that are literally a mile away from each other. You have to take a car. It takes like 10 minutes sometimes to drive between holes, and you lose all that for me. And it's not a golf course. It's just some really, really good holes.
And another big part of it is you don't know I made this point before, but you don't know the limitations that were put on the architect. So when you had Jeff Shackelford on the other week and he was talking about Rustic Canyon, and he said he designed that course so you'd walk off the green and there were tees right there, and then they subsequently changed them because culturally people were hitting shots into the group and they didn't want litigation and all these things, so they moved it and made the walks longer. Well, now if you went back there and one of your key metrics was you should be able to stumble off a green onto a tee, you've got to sort of consider the context as well of what was tried and how it's evolved, and it's really tricky. I know I keep, this is the problem and this is the problem, and we've got to think about this, but one of the key points that I really do hope we get across is we really want to think about this stuff, and we really want to come up with a list that people can say, these guys have got some fabulous panelists, and I'm so excited to announce some of the panelists that are joining the top 100 team, and I'm not going to let you guys announce them just yet, so you have to wait on that
come
one.
on.
But there's some really wonderful.
You've got to be excited
names.
then. The way he framed that sentence, I thought that's it. He's in. He's going to spill all the beans here. Just like sit back.
But
Sorry,
we've
Sam.
got these. We've got to have these great guys, and we really, really want them to think about it, because we want to end up from the great base that we have that's been built up over literally decades of producing this stuff. We would love to get to a point where we're the gold standard in reviews, and whether that be, we have this thing that Simon and I say, it's globally, nationally, locally. There are all of these different levels that we sort of review and rate and rank courses on, and we take that seriously, and we want it to do a great job. So it's hard work, and we've really, really got to consider it and get the best people, but that's what we're trying to do.
I think when we started this podcast, we were talking about, architecture, and it's like, we're 20 years behind the Americans 20 years behind us. And actually, I think golf as an industry, not that it makes it bad, but we do hang behind other industries on this stuff. We haven't been, first to market out of the sports for these types of innovations. But, it feels like if I'm a golfer and I'm, touching down in London Heathrow, I should be able to put some stuff in through something I've got, set up on top100golfcourses.com, and it knows the profile of golfer I am. It knows my handicap. It knows what day of the week it is, and it knows what type of golf I like to play. And it puts me at exactly the place in Surrey that I should be for me, and the place that I'm going to love the most. And that's a much better way of kind of using those kind of resources and point people towards courses than saying, oh, I happen to be sat in Worcestershire today. Well, here are courses 1 to 10 in Worcestershire, principally in kind of like green fee order. Like there's got to be something more intelligent. Like, we've decoded the human genome. We must be able to do something better about how we signpost people towards golf courses, So
I agree. And we've got all of this amazing data, and all of these fabulous contributors to the website. So 7,500 golf courses, and we know a lot about them. And if we could get to a point where we could find out what you as an individual want and what you prioritize and what you like, then absolutely, we'd love to get to the point where we can put those things together. Because I think if I said, and obviously I'm going to bring it back to links golf because that's what I kind of know, but if I said, what's your top 3 links courses, and someone said the Old Course, Muirfield, Prestwick, okay, and someone else said my top 3 links courses are probably Trump Aberdeen, Kings Barnes, and Macrohannish Dunes, then I wouldn't say that either of them are right or wrong. They just have different tastes. But off the back of that information, and 3 golf courses, but off the back of that, you could probably suggest half a dozen other golf courses that I absolutely know that they would love, because I've got at least an idea of what they value and what they appreciate. So if you can do that on the scale, and we're so fortunate, we've got millions of people using the websites, and we hope that will grow as we improve as and invest in this and make it an even better resource than it is right now. And I would love to get to the point that you've just described, Sam.
God, that sounds like science fiction. That'd be brilliant.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, if anyone out there has got another 5 million that we can invest in AI golf thing, this would get. But first baby
I
step.
don't know what Sam's told you. He's probably told you you'll have that built by next week, knowing him anyway. So I think that project plan's going to start slipping well and truly to the right. I think it's really exciting, and we're pulling for you guys 110% on this. Like it's it's going to be a great journey, I'm sure. I'm curious as well, just to pick a few more questions in terms of you both, and what future plans look like as well with golf travel. We're kind of at the end of 2021, new year ahead. Maybe COVID's going to get a bit easier. Maybe it's going to get a bit tougher for a bit. But Simon, you're in the top 100 Illuminati. You're kind of rubbing shoulders with the greats. What's the plans for next year? Have you got any more sort of trips planned, or have you kind of now started to sort of wean yourself off a few of these kind of monster trips?
Well, obviously the last 2 years, clipped wings. I managed to go over to Northwest Ireland and see St. Patrick's under construction, actually, and wonderful place. I would encourage everyone.
Looks amazing.
So wonderful, and really quick flight for everyone. And that whole Northwest, I would encourage people to go there because it's an affordable trip. You can cobble it together yourself easily enough. And like I say, whilst the big names, if you're a sort of bag tag Barry, whilst the big names are off the menu for next year because of all the flip trips, the rescheduled trips, Northwest Ireland's a great place to go. In terms of my own personal travel, I'm hopefully going to the States on the 5th of January. So hopefully go over there and play a little golf. I'm playing in a foursomes event in America, of all things. And
I didn't know they knew how to play foursomes in America.
Is that alternate shots?
They call it alternate shot.
Yeah, so I'm going over to play that in a tournament that I've played a few times. So I'm really excited to go back there, having missed it last year. Play a bit down there. Hopefully going to take a little tour of the tree farm with Zach Blair. So that should be really looking forward to that. That's another really interesting one in terms of a golf development that we've for the first time be able to watch happen through social media, which is great. And I don't know, a lot more GB&I stuff. I'd love to go up to the Carnegie Shield at Dornoch. Not that I have any expectations of doing well. All depends on my tee time. So this year, and all this stuff's open information. But maybe enjoyed myself a little too much on the first night. Shot 86 at 8 a.m. tee-off time with 43 putts.
Wowzers.
And then enjoyed myself equally the next night, but had a 1:30 p.m. tee-off time and shot 73. So only improved by 13 shots. But yeah, so I love going up there. It's a wonderful part of the world, being able to play like Brora and Tane and all those great courses up there. It's so much fun. I'm not sure, open to suggestions really, but I've quite enjoyed being at home and sort of playing a lot of the GB&I courses like Sam.
It's made us realise what's on our doorstep, hasn't it? I think the last year or two.
Is there any courses in GB&I, because you've obviously played a lot of golf, Simon. Is there any courses you like, it just evaded you for some reason that you really want to get to?
Yes, the Southwest. The Southwest of England, that is. I'd really like to go down and I've never played St Edonoc, Trevose, Perranporth, all those places down there. I'd really like to go down and spend a bit of time down there and a bit more of Wales. I was really lucky. I went to Royal Porthcawl with a member about a month or so ago at the start of October. And when I was doing the 100, running around like a crazy man, that was my 99th course because it was kind of just there, if that makes sense. And I was like, wow, this place is great. I'd love to go back. And I went and I stayed in the Dormy House and played 4 rounds. And that's all foursomes as well. And that's how I feel you really get to know a particular course, is when you spend good time there. I don't care who you are. If you're doing repeat plays, you really start to get it. But it also pointed out to me, there's so much great golf in Wales that I've not seen yet either. So that's sort of on my wish list too. So I've got quite a random wish list of these sort of niche places that aren't quite on the sort of tourist trail, if that makes sense, that I'd like to do this year.
Porthcawl's such a good example of somewhere where it's a fantastic golf course. It's a fantastic links course.
Amazing place.
But the experience of going there when you've got the creaky wooden floorboards, when you walk into the little bar and you've got the sunken green armchairs, and you're literally 30 feet from the shore, and you can hear the waves lapping at the bay, and the guys there greet you with just like the best hospitality ever. So I don't know. I get it. Top 100 golf courses, like it's got to be about the kind of what's going out on the playing pitch. But a bit of me in my head's like, so many people don't price that stuff in they don't put enough stock, I don't think, in that stuff when they go there. And a visit to the Dormy House and staying in a place like Porthcawl and, soaking up the history of that place is just, it's fabulous.
I would argue that a lot of people don't have access to that sort of thing. A lot of people pay a green fee, they turn up, they play it, and they maybe have a drink, then they leave. And it's kind of, that's what I suppose the difficulty in your job is, guys, the impossible task that you've decided to set yourselves of all things, really. But, the majority of golfers will go somewhere, they'll pay a green fee, they'll play the course and leave. Not many people stay or hang out with members and chill out at the bar. And I think, like Cooper says, you've got to price that in. Most people just play the course and leave, which is sad.
Yeah. Well, the fun list as well, I'd like to just take it slightly away from the actual golf courses to more what Williams was saying is somewhere like Porthcawl, which I love, and just fell in love with Royal Porthcawl this year when I was there. You walk in and it has the feel. You called it a vibe earlier on. Yeah. You can't articulate it, but as a golfer, we all know what you mean. You walk in, you're like, wow, there's a rightness about Porthcawl. And you walk in, it's kind of some, hybrid between a cricket pavilion and I'm not sure what. And that's not meant to be like disparaging. I love it. It just oozes charm. The staff are amazing. You've got dimple pint glasses. There's like a nice patina on all the wood. You've got this incredible library that's tucked away. And if you've ever been there and not been to the library, race back and check out the library. It's incredible. And all of those things definitely add. We're all human beings, but for the rankings piece, absolutely is focused on the golf courses. But in terms of enjoyment and experience, there is a place for that conversation. Let's not be snobby about it. Of course there is. I mean, I rant and rave about the quality of a sticky toffee pudding as well as the next man.
Man after my own heart.
This is a great opportunity we don't have 12 editions a year, print editions that come out, and there's only so much scope that we have. We have a website that's a living, breathing beast, and people love it and engage with it, and that's what we want. And I completely agree. I mean, there are so many things, Mills and Williams, we've joked about we should do best lunches and best showers and Simon best ticket off. I'm not saying we're going to necessarily go and do all these things, but we do have the scope to go and tap into what these other ineffable qualities that people love about golf. Because yes, our main list will always be about the golf courses, but there's no reason. There's so much more to golf that we all love, and especially as guys who all love to travel. It's the golf course is a big part of it, but it's not the only part of it. And there is definitely scope, and I can say this because I'm the one that's just making more work for myself by saying it. But there is the opportunity to do some of these things.
Well, this AI machine that you're building, I can't wait to get my hands on it. Simon, just before, we've obviously taken up a lot of everybody's time, and we'll look to wrap it up. But I'm sure you did your due diligence, before you went in with your hard-earned cash. But there are other top 100s out there, and I'm surprised you didn't come in with an offer for the Bucket List 100 on the Cookie Jar Golf website. I mean, I'm amazed. I'm astounded it didn't come in. But there are other... The Bucket List Top 100, Simon, in case you don't know, is we pit things off against each other and said, which would you rather play? And it popped out a list at the end. I just want to talk about one last thing about the top 100. Do you find when you are playing these things that a really important thing that you need to try and work on is expectation management? I talked to David about this. I found that when I'm going somewhere and expecting it to be amazing, that I find it really hard to find it amazing. And actually, when I'm doing the Halings or the Dernesses or the things that Cooper bowls in with all the time, that's the ones that blow me away. Do you find that hard when you were doing your trip?
Yes, there's definitely surprises when you go in with low expectations, and then there's like inverted snobbery from me that, you know, some places, inverted snobbery is completely the wrong phrase, but snobbery, I went to somewhere like Whistling Straits and with really low expectations, I actually quite enjoyed it. And I'm not ashamed of saying that, and even though it's not my type of course. And then, but yeah, I mean, there's certain places that I won't name if you don't mind, but there are like top 20, top 25 courses in the world. Well, it's just not polite to the people who very
No, wouldn't expect you to, but like it's good.
There is a couple of courses in the world top 25 that I went to, and I just didn't quite get it. And then there's other courses that I went to with really low expectations, and like complete honesty, I was essentially just ticking a box. And I was like, wow, how great is this place? I can't wait to go back here. And then, but it's more the nice surprises you get when you turn up to places and that you hadn't heard of. And I know my whole thing should be, I'll play the top 100 and everything, but it really, the enjoyment I got from going to somewhere, you know, played in a member guest at somewhere very name droppy in New Zealand, and the caddy master said to me, have you played Arrowtown yet? Down in Queenstown, on the South Island. And I said, well, we're in the North Island. And he goes, yeah, but it's only a short plane ride away. And I said, well, I suppose it's shorter from here than it is from Scotland. So I just hopped on a plane the next day and went down and played at Arrowtown, and I absolutely loved it. And I just thought, wow, this is what it's all about. If you're like a true traveling golfer, you take the advice of the local people and you go. It's like asking a local person which pub to go to or which restaurant to eat. And it's the same with golf. And this community that we have, I'm kind of spinning back into the website now, but this community we have at top100golfcourses.com, and this ability to leverage that community. And when I say leverage, not for mine and Sam's benefit, for everyone's benefit, to go there, you know, and put your information in terms of what courses you like, which ones you've played, what your wish list is. And then we can all together kind of say, oh yeah, that place is great, you should definitely go there. Or, you know, I went there, by all means go there, but, you know, just temper your expectations a little. And the more information we can have available to people, the more powerful tool it will be.
I think that's probably a perfect place to end it, because you have just hit the nail on the head. And I don't envy either of your jobs and your tasks now, because Simon, you've got to stump up the money for this AI machine that Cooper's building, and Cooper, you just keep adding parameters to it. So it's God knows where it's going to go, but we've got every faith that you're going to absolutely nail it, boys. We're really excited that we've been able to announce it on the podcast, and thank you so much for giving up your time and coming to chat to us.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, gents.
You're going to say the adios, Sam? Do you want to do that part?
Until next time, adios. Is that right?
Watch this.